I'm sure that you meet many people in Serbia who are asking you the same thing, that Russia is basically using, is making excuses for its deeds out of NATO bombing and what was happening in Kosovo. So what do you say about that? I mean, there are many similarities from our point of view.
I understand that from people saying that. I really would respectfully disagree that there are similarities between 1999, which was a very difficult time for Serbia, frankly a difficult time for all of Europe. No one was happy with that time. But to compare that with what is going on in Ukraine is simply, I think, a mistake. So I understand why many Serbs will kind of look at Ukraine and think about their own past, but I think this is a time to really think about the treatment of Ukraine, the treatment of Ukrainian civilians especially, and frankly the direction of Russia. I mean, this is a country that we had aspirations for. It's a country with a deep and rich history, of poetry, of novels, of symphonies, and somehow that Russian leadership has taken it deep into the forest, and when they come back, I have no idea, but I don't think we can wait for them. I think we all need to work together and look together to find better systems for our children to live in.
Speaking about 1999 and 2022, you are, I think, the first, I mean, definitely the first U.S. ambassador who visited the bombed part of the RTS building. I'm not expecting you to call this a war crime as we would think of, I mean, especially us who are working in RTS. But would you call it a mistake, at least? Because it is also used as an excuse for many wrongdoings around the world.
I think it's important if, again, I'm not really interested in relitigating 1999, but I think it's very important to remember, for Serbs to remember who was running Serbia and why that person was running Serbia and what that person was doing to other peoples around the Balkans. So without relitigating it, there's no question when you see a site where a bomb fell, where people were killed, you absolutely regret the loss of life, and I certainly feel that and regret that. And feel a great sense of sorrow for the families who live with those losses. But I am not in a position to suggest to you that this is somehow analogous to the utter brutality and barbarism that being committed against the Ukrainian people. So I would encourage Serbs to, by all means, remember. But I think it's very important in the life of a nation, as it is in the life of an individual, that there are certain moments where you have to kind of move forward and leave the past behind and look to the future. I'm certainly trying to do that here in Serbia. I'm certainly trying to build up the U.S. relationship with Serbia. I'm trying to be honest and clear with the Serbian people. But I think it's important for everybody, and especially people who've had a arduous and difficult past, as the Serbian people have had, that it's time to move on. It's time to look to the future, to their children's future, to their children's children's future. And I think everybody in this country, I understand the role of history, but everyone in this country ought to be thinking about how to go forward and not always looking back.
Yeah, but you are aware that many people are waiting to hear, I mean, taking in mind what you just said, but they want to hear from the Western side, from the NATO side, okay, our shit was not that clean. I mean, it was not all great what we did in 1999. Just that one message, and we're not getting it.
I think, anybody who is involved in that had the responsibility at the time to do the best they could. In my case, I was trying to restructure essentially an autonomy arrangement. And ultimately, it didn't work. But I certainly tried my best on that. And I certainly, my preference in life is always diplomacy. I have never been someone who advocates war when I think there's room for diplomacy. And what I can assure you and assure your listeners is I tried as hard as I could to make sure diplomacy would prevail. I'm saddened by the course of the U.S.-Serbia relationship, and one of the reasons I'm back is to see if we can do more together. I think our two countries have a lot in common. You can go back in history to find those commonalities, but I think you can look forward and see where we I think can work, can do a lot together, and I'm very pleased to see some of the things we're doing, whether it's economically, whether it's some cooperation between our militaries, which we've had as well. We have a lot of political cooperation on various issues, and I'd like to see a lot more of it, and that's what I'm dedicated to.